Good afternoon, Team Pratap. I'm your host, Janvi. We are back again with one more very interesting session this week. We all know education and learning is a continuous process in our lives, and especially for a leader. The impact of learning is directly proportional to the relevance of a topic to us. So, in a molding age of a human being, there are most important ones where one needs to infuse the value system into them to be a good human being and thus become an efficient leader. So, that's the topic for the day, infusing leadership at an early stage. Please welcome Ms. Suman Singh, who shall be moderating our session. We also have with us Mr. Shakti Singh, Director, Pratap Foundation. Please join me in welcoming our guest for the day, Lina Ashar, co-founder of Korroboree and founder of Emeritus, Kangaroo Kids and Billabong High. Without any further delay, I invite Suman to take us through the program. Suman, over to you.
Thank you, Janvi. Good afternoon, everyone. Our today's guest is a renowned entrepreneur, writer, eminent leader, and a very powerful speaker who's based out in Mumbai. She is presently the co-founder of Korroboree and founder of Emeritus, Kangaroo Kids and Billabong High. Guys, she is the winner of a slew of national and international awards. Oh my God, I have a long list to read out, but I can't take all the names. I'll take few of them. There are awards from like Economic Times, Times of India, iGlobal, EduWorld. One of the most notable one is the Lifetime Achievement Award in Education by EduWorld in 2014. And here we are in tete-a-tete with Lina Ashar. That's Lina Ashar for you guys. Good afternoon, Lina. How's the day for you so far?
Fabulous. It's a bit gloomy in Bombay, but yeah, I'm really thrilled to be here with all the bright faces on the screen.
Thank you. Lina, your primary education it was in England, and then secondary and tertiary education in Australia. Then you took a sabbatical and came back to your roots here in Mumbai. You took up a job at a prestigious school in Juhu also. So wanted to know what was the breakthrough that you decided to came into the system and try to change and create a niche for yourself. I mean, like, how did it happen all through?
So how it happened is an interesting story. I had an Australian boyfriend. My parents didn't want me to marry. So
all right.
So they said, we're giving you 1 year sabbatical from college. Go to India, connect with the family. And I was always fascinated by India and the mysticism and the spirituality and and my family was all here, so it was very exciting. I said, yeah. So my parents said, if you come back after a year and you guys want to still get married, we'll think about it. So they're way smarter than I was, and obviously that 1 year changed the course of my life. So yes, I came here. I was teaching at a prestigious school in Juhu, and it wasn't like a breakthrough. It was a lot of heartache. Sort of seeing these kids go through the kind of pressure and stress that they went through. Because for me, learning is supposed to be joyous. It's supposed to be an adventure. And for these kids, it clearly was an adventure. And then I think the straw that broke the camel's back was, we had to, when we assessed kids, and it was all on rote, right? It was you're only assessing memory. But we had to rank them. I had 55 kids in my class. I had to rank them from 1 to 55. Mm-hmm. And there was this one boy who would work really hard. He was like really putting a lot of effort in, because he said to me that if I come in the first three, my dad's going to buy me a bicycle.
Okay.
And he came fourth. And his dad was there, and his dad said, sorry, you came fourth, no bicycle. And I think that's the day I went home and I cried for this boy. And I said, we're doing everything wrong in the system. We're not encouraging kids to have a growth mindset. We're sort of, it's okay for the first three kids in the first three rankings. But what about the bottom three kids? You're almost setting them up for a lifetime of failure after that, right? Because your beliefs about yourself start when you're very young. Now, even though I hadn't done as much neuroscience study at that stage, I didn't know so much about the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, how our beliefs get set, how the fact that if we believe we're not enough, we actually will never be, and then how we'll have to, go through a lot of pain or a whole reprogramming of our subconscious. So all of these would play at me. I had 2 years left. I I was friends with Kiran More. He was then, part of the Indian cricket team, and he was a friend of mine at that stage. And I said, I'm going to go back. I'm going to finish my studies. And I'm going to come back here and I'm going to change the face of education in India. And he said, how are you going to do that? I said, I don't know, but I know. And this is before Paulo Coelho said, when you have a really strong purpose and your intentions are pure, the universe will align and show you the way. Today I even know the neuroscience of how that actually happens. But at that stage, I just knew I had this real fever to come back, this real drive to come back and affect the education system in a way that would be more joyous for kids to have their childhood, because there's a certain preciousness of childhood that we've got at that stage, which is completely taken away. So that's how it all happened.
See, guys, so heartbreaks and breakup creates such wonderful leaders. Jokes apart, but Lina, coming to our topic of today, that's
I just like to say something to the people who are listening. It's not the breakups that create your breakthrough in your leadership, but if everyone who's watching can keep in mind that if you can have the strong belief that everything positive or challenging happens for a reason, if you can keep that as your mindset, you will have what is called an anti-fragile mindset. So everything that happens to you, you will find a way of using it as a springboard to something better than where you are. But for me, better doesn't mean more money necessarily, but better in terms of who you become, what your skill sets are, and all of those.
Great. Coming to our topic of today, that's infusing leadership at an early stage. The point is, see, in an organization, when we hire an employee, we consider him or her as a fresher. We want them to start from the basics, wherein they are already expertise, hold the grip and expertise in their own domain. So how to drive them toward leadership roles for the new talents actually.
So you have to be self-driven. So one of the frailties of our education system is it's externally motivating. We wait for rewards, results, accolades, trophies, the pats on the back. And so therefore what happens is when we're constantly extrinsically driven, then we're looking at things kind of the wrong way when we enter the workplace. We need to have, the drivers should be internal. They should be about the self. I tell kids, if every day you can wake up and you say, I'm better today than I was, I'm going to be better today than I was yesterday. For me, you're a phenomenon. And, so it's not up to, and it's up to the organization per se, really. People who worked with me, so I sold the company 3 years ago, but people who worked with me at Kangaroo Kids in Billabong High worked with me forever. They worked with me for 25 years. I've had people who worked with me for 27 years, 15 years. So once somebody came into the system, they wouldn't leave. Now that's up to the employer or the organization, because what we have to realize when we're running organizations, and I'm hoping everybody who's watching in terms of the audience, that they all actually have an entrepreneurial mindset. And that's why they're here watching it today. That once you put anything, you want a return on effort. And as a leader, you're constantly, whether you can see it tangibly or intangibly, you're constantly investing in your people. And when you invest in your people and you start aligning them to the purpose, the vision, the values, the culture, if you lose that person, you are losing a lot. You're losing a lot, which I don't think enough people realize. They feel that you slot somebody in with an MBA from Harvard or, from Wharton or from here or there, and suddenly, everything's going to be hunky-dory. It's not the way it is. I mean, you should actually be looking to keep your people forever. And the way to do that, when somebody joins my organization or joined my organization, because I'm just on the verge of a startup again, but when somebody joined my organization once upon a time, I'd say, once you join, I never want you to leave. So give you an example, the guy who was my driver, so I'm going to come from somebody you would think of as low skilled or barely skilled. Somebody who was my driver and who was like on maybe a 15,000 rupee salary at that time, 12, 15, I don't really remember. He ended up being a project manager in my school and he was earning 1.5 lakhs.
Wow.
Right? When I sold my company, he came and he said to me, I want to know whether you're one day going to exit or you're going to be here forever, because I'm not working for the organization, I'm working for you. The reason I had the drive and the inner drive is because I'm working for you. I said, one day I will exit, or I don't really have a say because they may ask me to exit. So he's gone on to join my son now. And he's now on a salary of 3 lakhs a month, a driver, right? A girl who joined as a teacher, right? Today she's the head of curriculum department. So so people can earn great salaries. You just have to keep upskilling them. So what I would tell my people is, I don't want you to be in the same position for more than 2 years. You have to show me that you've outgrown this position, that you no longer will thrive in this position or learn new things in this position. And you have to show me that you need to move. So, from a teacher, you can become an administrator or a coordinator or a principal. You just have to keep on upskilling. And that's not only my motto for my people, it was my motto for my kids. That there's nothing stopping you, there's no glass ceiling. Not for women, not for men. It's all in your head. And that's why when people ask me as a woman to come and speak about the challenges of women in the workplace or the glass ceiling and all of that, I said, I'll never join those panels. Because I don't believe, the minute I sit down to tell other women that there is a glass ceiling or there are challenges by virtue of you being a woman, I'm planting one more seed in their head towards that. Why would I want to do that? I want to tell women you're unstoppable. You actually have more, you actually have an advantage over men, because you got to take a corpus callosum. You can do, you can do left and right brain hemispheric things like equally and possibly at the same time. And so and you bring empathy, which in leadership is just a given. You bring compassion. If women rule this world, we'd have less hunger, we'd have less wars, we'd have more everything. More compassion, more abundance, more nurturing, just better life for everyone. So, we never ever want to tell anyone that there's any challenges that can stand in your way. Because how you see them, whether you see them as a stepping stone or a stumbling block, is in your own head.
What a wonderful thought process. You're such a success space today. And we all know it's not overnight. It's a hard-earned repute now for almost 28, 29 years. And we're sure you have come out through, the dark zones, the success, hardship, failures. Basically, just wanted to know how to deal with the failures. Did it help you to overcome, or it was shattering period? How do you deal with that?
Again, like I said previously, if in your head you have the thought process that everything happens for my higher good, if you truly believe that, and there's a neuroscience to why you need to believe that. But if you believe that actually everything that happens to me happens for me, not to me, then when you have a setback, you will say, what am I supposed to learn from this? Right? So you won't be sitting there in states of pain or in states of sadness. You'll be saying, hey, what has this time come to teach me? How can I use this time to benefit me? So, a lot of people have copied the system of Kangaroo Kids or Billabong High. And a lot of them used to be my franchisees, and then, at some point they feel like they don't need you any longer, and then they break away. And at one breakaway was specifically hard because I'd set the whole back end of my office to meet his needs, right? And I'd taken on cost, and he owed me a lot of money at that stage, close to 2 crores, which for me at that stage was a lot of money, because I was more like a consultant for schools rather than having a big, cash flow of my own. And when I started thinking about what it's supposed to teach me, I said, I think it's supposed to get me out of my comfort zone, to shifting from my head that I can't go and build schools and run my own schools. So when I think of that, if that hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't have gone on to set up my own schools. And everyone knows that, when a private equity fund comes to buy you, they give you a multiple on your EBITDA. And while I was in a consulting mode, I had very little EBITDA and, very little top line and bottom line. Having been forced to set up my own schools, suddenly my top line and bottom lines were much larger. So when it came for time for me to sell the company, it was thanks to somebody who at that stage I could have perceived had done me wrong. And so I actually sent him a thank you message. I sent him a thank you message. I said, I kind of fought you in the courts and stuff. But I don't think I ever stopped to be grateful and to say thank you that you believed in my vision of a school, and you actually invested in the first Billabong High that there was. And thanks to that, so many other Billabong Highs came along. And thanks to that, now where I put my focus, see what I tell kids and anyone, you have so much energy. And you actually want a return on that energy. So where you place that energy is up to you. You have a choice of where to place that energy. You can either place it in ways that serve you or in ways that don't serve you. So what I'd like to excite everybody who's watching in the audience to think about is this, that when something happens and you have a thought that this person is mean or this person was nasty or why did this happen to me, I want to encourage you to just think about, does this thought serve me? Does it empower me? Or does it disempower me and make me feel more frail and more vulnerable? Because your thoughts can do one of two things. They can either lift you higher or they can have you sink lower. So where you want to place your energy with regards to your thoughts, because we're so lucky as the human race, we get to choose our thoughts. We think we don't, but because we're always on on this treadmill and we're always in autopilot mode. But the beauty is we actually get to choose our thoughts, and we get to then reflect on those thoughts. That is this thought going to make me better? Or is it going to, there's a saying, is it going to make me better or is it going to make me bitter?
Great.
Yeah.
Great to hear. In such a short span, it's too hard to grasp all from such a pioneer leader like you. So I'll just pass it on to our panel members for an open Q&A session. So handing it over to panel.
Do you want to go through the presentation or not?
Yes, we are. You want to start with the presentation? You can start with the presentation also. Then we'll open it for the panel members.
Is that okay? Because it'll give you an bird's eye view of my journey.
No, sure. We would love to. We would love to see. Great. So,
obviously this is a Steve Jobs quote. And basically what I'd like to excite everyone to understand is that we're actually all shaped by experiences of life, and so am I. And the big difference is what meaning or what story we tell ourselves about the experience. So like I said, we can tell ourselves stories in two ways, empowering or disempowering stories. So while we may not always be in control of what happens to us, we can control what it means to us. And that's what I'd like to excite everyone to think about. So I came across this quote in my life when I was emotionally and physically exhausted. It's that, period of 2006 when, things kind of seemed to be going wrong for me. How do I go down?
Janvi, can you please help her?
If you guys can control the thing just as well, I'll tell you when to shift. To save time, does anyone want to ask me anything?
Lina, you are in a service industry, a thankless job. In fact, in a service industry, when we are there and while you are in this onset of this expansion, where, you're creating national and international, you've crossed the map, established school in Dubai, Qatar and all. See, in service industry, when you expand, you can't have your grip all over the map. How do you maintain the quality while expanding yourself?
So I was the first in the schooling space to set up what I used to call a quality assurance team. So there are a few things I did. One is I've been speaking to people about the NEP, the new education policy, because they're trying to tell people you need to go from here to here, but you're not telling them how they need to make that journey. Right? You're just saying this is the outcome we want, but no one actually understands. And what we have to understand in India is teachers haven't gone through the education system that I'm expecting them to teach. So they haven't experienced that education system themselves. And then on top of that, they haven't gone through a university or a college degree that teaches them those skills either. So what I did first is I had an instructional design process. So before every teacher walked into any class, he would have like the recipe of the lesson plan, what we call the instructional design. So she would know what the aims of the lesson were, how to exactly go about the lesson, and how to check whether the outcomes are met. So by doing that, I'm very detailed with all the resources, whether they're videos or PowerPoints or pictures or models or whatever it was. That was all part of the lesson plan, that either the center had it or you could download it or we'd send it in some way. So whether it's a song, whatever it was, whatever that medium of media was, it was part of the lesson plan. So I had a Monash University professor come here and he said, no, how can that work, And then he realized that, the big gap we have in the teacher competency of what we're expecting and where it is, that this was the only way. And he said something, he said, what I realized is at the minimum with this recipe, you'll have bread. But if you have a good teacher who is creative, you'll actually end up with cake. So that was the first piece. So that what was happening in the classrooms was standardized across. Then, because we had a whole instructional design team, everything would get mapped from there. So basically how much homework a kid gets. What happens when a kid goes to school? The maths teacher, English teacher, no one's coordinating how much homework this kid gets. So sometimes he's got like 3 hours of homework. Sometimes he's got no homework. And you're giving homework for all the wrong reasons. So here, because I had an instructional design team of 80 people, I could actually give them the whole philosophy. Homework is not to go and finish unfinished work, which is how it's largely been used in India today. So our homework was like this. If we were teaching kids about plants, they'd have to go to the chemist and do an interview with the pharmacist and ask, can you show me 3 products that have this plant extract or this plant extract. So then for them to come to an understanding that most of our medicinal stuff have plant extracts in it. So it was like a deep immersion of teaching. So if the kid was in a younger age group, we'd ask their moms to take them shopping. And in the same time, we were training the parents, and we'd have like Heinz and all the brands. And the kids actually had to run around the supermarket finding those brands while the moms were doing the shopping. So, we'd actually use the home extension of what we were expecting kids to do in a lot more of a fruitful way. In the same way we had instructional design, we had training. So in the soft skills, etc. So we'd had a whole back team set up of actually deep diving, the kind of documentation our people would keep, from a coordinator to a principal when they walked into classrooms to observe, the sort of reflective process that they take teachers through. That's what kept the quality together.
Great. Do we have questions from the panels? Okay, Kamlesh, start. I would like you can ask.
Okay, you can go to the next slide. So, I was close to giving up, that thing that happened to me in 2006. Mm-hmm. And Steve Jobs' quote kind of made me think about it. And as I look back on my life, I saw very clearly that it was not just the opportunities, but even the challenges that we face are possibly all guidance systems from the universe, they're connected dots that actually take us to our destiny. So as I began to look back, I started to see clearly and in a very, very empowering way that the dots do connect, and I'll give you a couple of examples. Can you change? Sorry, change again. So you can change. So this is me as a kid with dislocated hips, and I was in plaster for months. And it kind of meant that, my brain would be forced to develop the power of associative thinking because, I'm just looking at the ceiling and I'm making stories from all the cracks and stuff that I see because, and my mind would have to kind of keep on wandering, musing, and reflecting. Today, neuroscience tells us the power of being alone with thoughts, and getting bored, and how creative it means that you become when you get bored. Can change? So, today, sort of, as I said, we connect the dots. Neuroscience tells us that boredom inspires a form of lateral thinking, or, a divergent thinking, a form of engaging your mind to seek a more creative solution to problems triggered. So this, this interdisciplinary seeing is something that we were doing way before Finland started it. So we started this in 1993, and so our structured curriculum design in a box is an example of how my brain would sort of look to solve problems from a creative space, and how to, and would look to ways to create an engaging learning experience. Change. So because I was physically disabled, it also meant that I would develop compassion towards others that did not fall in, in the normal kind of development spectrum. And KKEL, it would kind of lead me to, we were the first inclusive school. And we kind of embraced inclusion across the physical, emotional, and cognitive development spheres. And our kids do phenomenally well. One of my goosebump stories. So, taking kids who are going to do well in a school and having them come out and do well is not as exciting as taking a kid who's autistic and having her be India's topper in art and design. That's a goosebump story for me. The other ones aren't. You can change. So, as a kid, I was accustomed to settling in many different countries. I've lived in Africa, London, India, and Australia, 4 countries that I sort of spent a lot of time in. And I had to sort of adjust. And, we all kind of know that when we travel, how we are open to moments of learning and moments of seeing things differently. So it would kind of help me learn to, adapt to new situations, and it would kind of help me to engage with different types of people, which as a leader you have to do. You have to be able to engage with very, very different kinds of people. And these connected dots would shift me as I moved back to India and had to adapt to new situations as they arose while learning to do business in India. Because I can tell you, that's not easy. To whoever watch it, it's way easier to do business anywhere else in the world than in India. So it also taught me how moving outside of your comfort zone helps you to learn and grow, and that change can be a powerful catalyst, like that this pandemic is kind of teaching us right now. You can change. At the age of 9, I went through 2 painful surgeries, surgical leg rotations to address clumsy walking. This kind of made me resilient to pain, not only physical pain but also emotional pain. And today, science shows you that even if you experience physical pain, you actually become emotionally more resilient as well. So, so it helped me be more compassionate, and it sort of taught me actively to fight for everyone's happiness. So some of the, okay. Yes, go to the next one. So it also made me do a lot of neuroscience, and today I actually understand how we can hardwire ourselves for happiness rather than pain. So there's some core beliefs that are embedded in everything that I do as a leader, and so I'll just share a few of them with you. Change. The first one is that, as I've been saying, life is not a coincidence, it's a reflection of you. So today we actually know that our inner reality creates our outer reality. I've started moonshot conversations on Facebook Sundays at 5 o'clock to actually empower people to see how that works. And neuroscience actually is demonstrating that our brains are plastic and that we have an invitation to change the structure of our brains at any time. Every thought you have actually changes the structure of your brain. And that's really powerful sort of to know. So what it would mean is, while I know, whether it's kids or adults, that we're all born with a certain DNA and genetic codes, but you can change. Each gene has volume control, and we hold the remote control to the volume dial in our own hands. So So we can actually change how genes express themselves. And it's today we know that we're all born with cancerous genes. Can you change the slide? We're all born with cancerous genes, but it is our environment. And when we say our environment and our nutrition is not just the food we eat. Our nutrition is the emotions we feel and the thoughts that we think. So, you know, that every thought that we have, our internal story creates our external reality, can you change this slide? Is kind of a really, really powerful thing. And, you know, it's something that I wanted to do. And so if you look at, you know, the kind of things that I've written up there, which are the ways of thinking, these are all about leadership. You know, you have to have imagination, leadership, innovation, negotiation, confidence, responsibility, connecting dots, questioning, independence, risk-taking, persistence. All of these are very, very essential skills of a leader. Change. So this is, you know, this is the two salesmen story where you can, you know, I don't know if you guys know the story, but two salesmen go to Africa to look at the opportunity of selling shoes. One telegraphs back saying, no opportunity, nobody wears shoes. And the other one says, it's a fantastic opportunity, nobody wears shoes. And then I talk to kids about this and say, you know, because of just that thought that they have or the baggage that they've brought to what before they think, what are the likely different outcomes between thinking this way and thinking this way? Change? So, you know, my whole question of how to bring a higher engagement of learning happened from having two brothers. My older brother is in the Mensa intelligence of the human race, and my younger brother failed. He failed year 10 twice, year 11 twice, year 12 twice. We put him in college, he failed the first year of college twice. But what happened is, you know, the school never spoke to him about why it needs to engage, because the kind of things he was learning in school, he didn't have any application for in the outside world. So when I'm teaching kids anything, so when I sit with my instructional designers and he comes to me and he says, we're teaching chemistry. And I say, okay, I don't know anything about chemistry. He says, we're teaching endothermic and exothermic reaction. And I'll say, can you show me an instance where this happens in real life? Because the brain has to connect anything it's learning. If it has a powerful reason why it's learning, it will learn it at a very different depth than if it doesn't have a reason why. So he'd say it's in a self-heating can. So we actually start with the self-heating can and we ask kids, you know, go tell me why you need to learn about endothermic, exothermic reaction, or how, you know, what is it that this entrepreneur learned about endothermic, exothermic reaction before he could, you know, innovate the self-heating can. And then that sort of thought process comes to everything. That if I'm learning this, where can I apply this in a way that will, you know, be magnificent? So in our schools, we actually ask kids why. So I'll give you an example, you know, that instead of teaching the digestive system, which is a very boring thing, you know, if you do it through a textbook, we'd ask kids that a murder's taken place. We all know the brain is hardwired for negativity. A murder has taken place. The detective calls a forensic scientist, and the first thing the forensic scientist does is examine the contents of the stomach. Why? So we kind of ask why questions rather than what and where, you know, and how questions. So that's a very powerful thing for even leaders, that instead of asking, you know, what and when questions, if you can ask the people why questions, you know, it'd be fantastic. Yeah, are there any more slides? So I think that's the last one. Human beings can actually do amazing things when they know their reason why. And there's a lot of research on this. You know, you can give two people, and it's one of the things that I think leaders fall down in. You know, if you're not constantly communicating with your people why you exist as an organization, why you matter, why the world would be a sadder place if you didn't exist. If you can sort of keep communicating that to to the people who work with you, you know, your people will actually astound you and do amazing things with that why. You can go back to the panel questions if you'd like.
Thank you for sharing. So I would just, you know, welcome the panel members to go ahead with their questionnaire.
Yeah. Hi, Lina. I'm Ashish. I'm taking care of UP East Circle, based out of Lucknow. So, in the Google generation today, coming to this why question is pretty difficult even for teachers, for parents to bring their children to the why thing. So, what is your thought? I mean, is Google generation? I mean, Google is good for the kids because most of the kids are today towards Google, using it to get all the answers. So,
No, so the problem is, just think of the example I just told you. Because if you ask kids what and where questions, they'll Google for that. But if you actually ask them, that a forensic scientist has been called and he examines the contents of the stomach, explain why, they'll have a different way of searching. Because they'll actually have to understand about forensic science, they'll actually have to understand the digestive system, then they'll have to come in to give you an explanation of why, and they'll have had a much deeper understanding of the digestive system. So it's not in the it's in the questions we ask. If you ask what, when, and where questions, and Google will give you a very simple answer. If you ask why questions, then the way kids look for those answers are not as easy as just going to Google. They will still go to Google, but what they'll be learning through Google will be completely different.
okay.
Yes, anyone else?
Hi, Lina.
Hi,
Yeah, I'm Kamlesh from Bhopal.
I can't see
Uh,
you, but okay.
yeah. Can you see me? No?
Hi, Kamlesh.
Yeah,
From
hi.
Bhopal.
Yeah.
Bhopal
Uh,
actually has my favorite Billabong.
yeah, where two of my children are studying in Billabong, High Bhopal. Uh, I have a question as a father. Since children are studying in IGCSE or ICSE, they are doing extremely well in their curriculum activities like arts, drama, sports, and whatnot. They are exhibiting good leadership also. At the same time, when it comes to opting about the career opportunities and the basic education after the school, so it become a very difficult and tricky task for them and for us also as parents. And one more thing, the competitive exam patterns are purely academic based in India as of now. So what is your take on my first question about the career selection? Do you plan to put up some platform to counsel such students where they are performing in all the areas, but what to choose in future? That should be clarified. And second, do you feel a change in the competitive exam pattern in India?
So I'm just writing down because my mind holds one piece of data at a time.
Oh,
And you've asked quite a few questions. So, Kamlesh, the first thing, while I still owned the company, I had started putting in careers like if we were teaching water in grade 1, we'd actually put all the careers related to water, as well as all the innovations and the inventions related to water. And including the age group of kids, because young kids can innovate and invent some fabulous stuff. So to get kids to start thinking differently, we would also start talking to kids about the various things and the way the world is opened up. So what I realized as I kind of went on, first is if I have one skill, I have a skill for visioning the future. Right? And so when I came to India, I visioned the new future because at that stage we were on the cusp of the information age. And I said, hey, this education system has to change. And then 3 years ago, I started reinventing the whole instructional design process again because, hey, 20 years from today, the world's going to be again completely different than it is right now. So we started putting the careers and stuff in the framework of what we're doing. That's because unfortunately, kids have blinkers on because they see the common careers like medicine, engineering, things like that. But you have to kind of open their horizons to what are all the possibilities out there. The one thing as a father I'd like to excite you to think about is that the future belongs to the entrepreneur. Right? I'm just going to switch this up. The future belongs to the entrepreneur. And so what can you... I'm just going to, 1 second, my computer thing is on. If the future belongs to the entrepreneur, what are the entrepreneurial skills you can teach your kids? So your kids have to be constantly curious. They have to constantly question the status quo, etc., etc. So one reason I got out of and I sold the schools is I do not believe the future is in brick and mortar schools. I believe the future is in the digital world. So I'm working on building a digital frame of learning. Standardized testing was one of the things that used to be like a bugbear for me, because you can keep building kids' EQ and other acumen, and then come to grade 9 and 10, they have to go back and do these stupid standardized board exams that actually mean nothing. Now, the thing I'd like to excite you to think about is that you've got universities. I'm interviewing Shai Reshef. He's building a university for 100 million kids. He's calling it the University of the People. And there are a lot of people now building online universities where the exams will not matter. You won't have the kind of cutoffs that you have at the moment for kids to actually get into university and college. So I see a lot of upsides to what's happening. And for me, this pandemic is only acting as a catalyst to bring to the fore what was going to come to the fore at some point anyway. So does that answer your question? So I got out of standardized testing, and what I'm doing is I am actually, we're building a tech platform called Korroboree, which will have people like Angela Lee Duckworth, the author of Grit, the global TED speaker Jill Blakeway. She's written a book called Energy Medicine, so understanding how your thoughts and your emotions actually create the physicality of your health, your illness and everything else. So I'm wanting to excite parents, because what happened is, schools have been acting as a top-down vertical depression of university. So if you have to do this in university, hey, we better do this in play school and nursery, right? Including writing and reading and stuff, without realizing what the long-term ramifications. So what I want to do is, my thing is in influencing parents. So this whole Korroboree platform will come on, and you will have me interview, in conversation with some of the greatest thought leaders across the world, and people who actually will give parents new ways of thinking about their kids. And one of the interviews I've done is with a guy called Hector Garcia, who's written a book called Ikigai. And the reason I interviewed him is I want all parents to be excited about finding what their kids' Ikigai is. We've come to like this world where we're actually all in a rat race on a treadmill, where it's kind of moving, but we don't actually know where we're going. And, we're trying to climb the corporate ladder, and we're trying to do things that are crazy to our well-being. And for me, a child's well-being is beyond everything else. I'd rather my kid makes a few less bucks, but is happy and content and peaceful, than has, 5 cars and a helicopter and everything else. So, this platform will open parents' eyes, because at the end of the day, what do schools do? Most schools are here to serve your needs. How does most marketing work? You work out what the world needs, and where's there a gap, and I'll fill the gap. I worked in reverse. I said, I know parents don't know that they need this, but I'm going to show them that they need it by building it first. So that happened when I did Kangaroo Kids. I started with only 10 kids, because everyone would come in and say, will you teach my kid to read and write? And, will you teach my kid who the father of the nation is? And I'd say no. Will you get my kid ready for this and this entrance exam into this and this school? And I'd say no. So I only started with 10 kids. I said, but hey, you know what I'll do with your kid will be extraordinary for your child's future, for his developmental need. But how many takers do you have of that? At the end of the day, parents are still worried about the 12th board exams and the 10th board exams, and parents don't realize what harm they're doing to their kids by taking on the onus and responsibility of being worried. And so all these interviews I'm doing to actually show parents the way. That please stop sitting at home when your kids have got 10th board exams and 12th board exams. Please live your own life, because, hey, by living your life, you're teaching your kids, that's your life, this is my life. And you've got to take accountability and responsibility for your own life.
Hi, Jeevat here. I have
Hi,
a question.
sir.
Hi. How are you doing?
Great.
See, you have a very successful story of spread over 28 years, and you have been an entrepreneur. I want to ask your views on the succession plan, how important it is, how it is effective in the corporate, the corporate lifestyle and the leadership which we have. We have leaders in this forum. So that is where we would like to have we would like to listen to your views.
So obviously, you want a succession plan. You want to hand your company in safe hands. I'm 56 years old, so I started thinking about this, kind of 6 years ago. My son is very similar to me in frame, so I brought him into the organization for a year, but he wants to create his own. He wants to blaze his own trail. He didn't want to take over my trail. So, and I respect that completely. So then I tried to get in a few CEOs. That didn't work out. And then I said, you know what? Either one day I'm going to die, and I don't know what's happened to Kangaroo Kids in Billabong High, or I'm going to try and leave it in the best hands possible. And so then I started the journey of looking to leave it in somebody else's hands. Now, whether I made the right choice or not, that time will tell. But two things led to that. One is the future is not brick and mortar, and the second is you want to leave the company in somebody's hands.
Thank you, Jeevat, for the question. We get to know Lina's age, by the way.
I have no qualms about any of that.
No, but you don't look like. That's why I'm saying that we get to know the age.
I did a moonshot conversation last week, and I was just saying, the problem is we all need some amount of significance, right?
Correct.
We all want some amount of significance, some amount of knowing that we made a difference, that that our living has had some impact. But the problem is we look for that from outside, and that's what the education system has taught us to do. Look for your grades, your awards, your accolades, your certificates, and all that. But imagine if you have an inner sense of significance. No one can ever take that away from you. Right? So you're never going to be looking at external ways of validating yourself. You look for internal ways of validating yourself, and I promise you, it's a much longer lasting and more sure process of validation.
Right. Any more questions? Okay. Lina, I just want to ask you one more thing. There are, leaders on the panel. We all start our day with a very, zest and energy. But we come to the same, we have the same monotony life. We come to the office like 10 to 5 or 10 to 10, like 12 in the night, whatever. But how to break the monotony? I want to know how the leaders, can keep it energized for the people around, that they shouldn't, lose the gist of boringness in the, present situation they are working. How to, keep them charged all the time?
What I told you earlier, that if you actually are constantly communicating with your people why you exist as an organization, and they actually understand their part in that existence, right? So, the girl who cooks my food, or the guy who cleans my house, I keep telling them about why what they do is important, because what they do allows me to do what I do, and then I explain to them why what I do is important in the world, right? So then they suddenly see their place not just as a cook or a cleaner. They see their place as as having much larger of an impact than just cooking or cleaning, right? And so that's one thing that's very important to do, that leaders constantly keep their people charged with why we exist, why it matters that we are here, why what we do will make a difference in the world, because at the end of the day, I understand everyone who lives and dies wants to know that journey has had some meaning in the world, right? So if you read the Nazi guy, the Jewish guy who was in the Nazi settlement, Man's Search for Meaning, it'll show you how it can take you through the most tragic of life journeys, and it can actually empower you to be different because you actually have meaning in your life. The second is to keep people learning and growing. So, again, if you're not learning and growing, you're stagnating and you're dying. So in our organization, we used to do what we call learning sprints. So we'd make a year plan of what our objectives for that year were and who we needed to be to make that, to have that need met. And then we would say, okay, what does it mean for us to get in order to do that? And I wasn't doing all the training. I was the coach for the organization. So somebody, and I kind of give it out in a very clever way. So the person who was most resistant to change would actually have to run the workshop on why change is the only constant. Right? So then I would actually, because you're not, one way is to dictate as a leader and tell someone that you have to be this person. And the other one is to be a coach, or to be like a consultant to that person. And that's what I encourage all parents to be to their kids, is not to tell them what to do and how to do it, but to take them on a journey, like a process. So for this person to now present to everyone else, right? She's got to do a lot of research and a lot of reading. So firstly, she's already priming her own brain to shift in its position. And then you always, when you teach something, you learn it 10 times better. So then now she has to teach it to people. And she would have to set up pre-read, so you're priming everyone's brain, and and then do the workshop. And then you'd have, again, a performance of understanding, where everyone would perform their understanding, that they actually understood what that learning sprint was about. Somebody's put something in the Q&A.
Okay, so there's a question from Jigar Shah. He wants to ask that how to remain self-motivated and keep it as a way of life. There are lots of negativity come all across the way on regular basis.
Say the last bit.
See, he's saying that, how to, keep ourselves motivated when we have negativity all across. I mean, like in our work culture also, we have to face a lot of negativity. So how to, overcome all that and stay positive.
So one is that, you need to understand that you're always the sum total of the 5 people you most spend time with. So don't spend time with negative people, for starters, right? So if, we think the wrong ways, because when we gossip with people, it gives us a sense of significance, but we don't understand what it's doing to us mentally and physically. Right. Those are nutrients we're putting in our system. So first is, only spend time with positive people. Second is, the minute you know the power of thought, that you actually get to choose a negative thought or a positive thought, you go through a process of reframe, right? So I'll give you an example. A cousin called me the other day and she said, how are you coping at this time? Because my entire family, my mom, my dad, my son, my to-be daughter-in-law, my maid, and my cook and my cleaner all got COVID at the same time.
Oh.
The house was sealed. At the same time, my brother in Australia was undergoing a quadruple arterial bypass.
Oh my God.
So all at the same time. But I don't think, oh my God, right? Because the minute you think, oh my God, you've actually put a spanner in your works, right? So I tell people this, you always create a sense of what can you control and what can't you control, right? I was in Goa at the time. I can't control going to Australia, which is where my brothers stay. I can't be there. So I can't control it, and me ruminating and worrying about it is not going to help anything. In fact, I'm sending negative energy to my brother instead of loving, calming, positive energy. So you have to get in a state of calm. So one of the things that excite any leader to do is meditation and mindfulness. And the minute you start doing meditation and you start observing your thoughts, you'll start knowing which thoughts serve you, which thoughts don't serve you. And that itself is a very powerful way of, not motivating yourself and not having negative energy or negative thoughts.
Hi, Lina, I'm audible now?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Lina, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So, Lina, my question is what does success means to you, or say, what do you want to say to kids? What does success should means to them? Because it's a very subjective one, huh?
No. So first thing is, no one should define success for anyone else.
Okay.
So I'm not defining success for any kids. What does success mean for me? What does success as a student mean? For me, if you're a student, is that if you're better today than you were yesterday, you're successful. For me, success is a very fixed criteria. right? Because I have thought very deeply about who I am. I've thought very deeply about what my values are, right? So when I sold my company, my brother wanted to buy me an Audi or a BMW or a Mercedes, and I said, Kamal, I know that that's your criteria of success, but it's not mine. In fact, one of my highest values is peace. And if you buy me one of these cars, I'm not going to have any peace. I'm going to be constantly worried about it getting hit, and how much money I have to fork out to fix it, and all of that. And being a good Gujarati girl, all those things matter to me. My criteria of success is I have to have the freedom to spend my time the way I want to. That for me is success. I have to wake up excited about what I'm doing every day, charged. For me, that's success. I have to be learning all the time. For me, that's success. I have to be able to contribute to the world in any way that I can. For me, that's success. So, I mean, there's a reason why I say yes to doing these things, not that I need, it's not because I need significance, or it's not because I'm hoping if anyone listening today goes away with one great thing that I have learned in my 56 years and can take one thing and run with it and makes a little bit of a difference to them, I feel like I've contributed. So whenever I coach, I mentor, and I do that for a lot of kids. With this pandemic, the company that bought over my company, all my peons got sacked yesterday. They're not my peons anymore because I don't own the company, but all of them got sacked. Now, if I was a leader, I would never do that. But having said that, I don't own the company anymore, so it's not for me to judge or not judge. But what I told all these guys, as they all started calling me one after the other, because I told the person who first told me that, they're sacking all the peons, have them call me. And as they called me one after the other, I said, you know what? The companies, because they've asked you to resign, they're paying you 3 months' salary. I've got to trust. You have to upskill, and I will pay for you to upskill yourself. Whether you become a driver, you become a DTP person, something that the world needs right now, I will pay for that. You've got 3 months to learn that new skill. And so don't look at this as a time, oh my God, what have they done to me? Look at this, oh my God, this is a time for me to learn something new and be even better than I was when I was with the company. So, and that gave me a kick. I mean, that charged me. If I can take these guys and make them empower their lives to be, happier and more powerful, for me, I'll go to sleep peacefully. A good night's sleep is also a sign of success, by the way.
Selena, the next question is from Shakun. She wanted to know how to handle judgmental attitude of people to you about being a girl. Like, you can't do things like men do because you have responsibilities at your home.
So this is a story you're telling yourself, right? It's a story you're telling yourself. Now, I used to be married once, and at some point, my parents were someone from Australia and were told by my in-laws that, she has to keep this as a hobby. She can't turn it into a business. Because she needs to look after the home and do this and do that. And my response was very clear. This is not a business. This is my mission. This is my blueprint. This is what I was born to do. When you choose, we've been taught that we need to be somebody as women. If you choose to believe that story, that's up to you. I chose not to believe that story, and I chose to move away from anyone who believed that story for me. While I said financial abundance is not on my values today, it used to be on my values because I knew I needed to be financially independent if I needed to do what I wanted to do. Right? So I had it high on my values list 20 years ago. It's not on my values list today. But you are the story you tell yourself. So if you believe that, This is what people are telling me I have to be. And if you believe that that's who you have to be, then that's the story you'll have to live. You know, you can be a victim or you can be a victor. It's all up to you. A victim mentality says, but how can I be any different? Because this is what the world has told me to be. This is what my mom's told me to be. This is what my dad's told me to be. This is what my mother-in-law's telling me to be. Or you can be a victor and you can say, yeah. But you have to do some inner work. You have to know who you want to be first. Because, you know, there's nothing wrong with being somebody who takes care of the house and being a mom and a wife. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging anyone. If that's your mission, then that's your mission. But you have to know what your mission is. And if your mission is strong enough, it'll drive you. You won't need to even think about it. Somebody asked about motivation earlier. If you actually live to your mission, to your purpose, if you first thought deeply about what that is and you live to that, you won't need anyone to motivate you. You won't need to motivate yourself. It'll just be pulled. And, you know, it's like, I'm getting pulled and I'm trying to catch up. That's how it'll be.
Right. We have one more question from Vinay Adar, who wants to know, how do you handle disagreements on your team?
So, firstly, you don't call them differences or what disagreements. See, every word you have carries with it a charge. So when somebody called me and asked me, how are you coping earlier? I said, I'm not coping, I'm thriving. Yes, there are some challenges that have come my way and they'll all, you know, handle themselves. I'll control what I can control. So you don't use the word disagreement, you use the word differences of thought or differences of opinion. So my way was very, very simple, and that included me, right? So if somebody had a different thought than I had about where we should go, it was very clear in the organization, either you argue me down or I argue you down, with either facts, rationale, emotions, whatever you need. Right? So if, you know, when I started the company, the entire world was teaching kids to read phonetically. And I didn't believe it was the right thing. You know, I believed in another system of learning, teaching kids to read. And today, by the way, my kids read when they're 3 years old, 4 years old, with no stress. And, you know, somebody who taught in a conventional school was having, and I actually had to demonstrate to her the difference. So you don't force someone to change their mind. You have to influence them to change their mind, either through, you know, showing them facts or showing them proof or showing them the research or something. So there's no disagreements there.
We are short of time, but we have one last question. That's from Amit Jain, asking how a new education system of India is going to have impact on a new generation. It is better or still more changes required in that?
Oh.
Do you think Indian education system is correct, basically?
Do you have another 2 hours?
Still, I mean, like a brief.
Obviously, not this just the education system in India. The education system in America, the education system around the world, really, mostly, is not where it's supposed to be. The NEP is a step in the right direction, but it's like saying, it's like telling someone, you know, this is what the cake's supposed to look like without giving them the recipe or any of the ingredients or anything else. That's what the NEP is at the moment. So while, yes, it's a step in the right direction, and, you know, the positive is that at least people are actually on webinars and stuff talking about education, like more than they ever have. We're still got a long way to go.
Anyways, what a wonderful session. I just wish I could, you know, drag it for longer hours, but I'll just, you know, have to take a pause over here. I would request Shakti, Director of Pratap Foundation, to give a vote of thanks to her.
Thanks, Lina, once again, for your wonderful session. I think this was a really a matter of pride for us to be you with us today. I think people have got to know about another part of the story. Otherwise, the leaderships we used to see is a totally different world. So thanks from entire team Pratap, and we would like to hear you once again and very shortly. Thanks once again.
Thank you so much.
So much, Lina. Thank you. And thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a blessed day. Bye.